finally, what are the next suburbs to gentrify? And I think everyone owes me one for telling everyone this, but let's get into it. Let's start with Victoria. So the two suburbs I best think are to gentrify next are Heidelberg Heights and Heidelberg West. So if everyone wants to know where they are right here as where I describe in the picture above. Anyway, what are the reasons for why Heidelberg Heights and Heidelberg West are going to gentrify? So let's start with, first things first, a little bit of the background and history of Heidelberg Heights and Heidelberg West. So they're both actually quite heavy public housing suburbs. And what's happened there is in the 2010s and late 2000s especially, a lot of that's actually been sold off. So that's actually just changed a lot of the scope of the suburb. It's gone through rejuvenation in recent years. So a lot of developers have actually held stock and actually developed it. And you'll see a lot of townhouses around there be developed. Now, the really interesting thing about Heidelberg Heights and Heidelberg West is that they're actually surrounded by all much more expensive suburbs. So if you go any direction, every suburb around it is more expensive. So Watsonia to the north is more expensive. Heidelberg and Rosanna to the east are more expensive. Also, Reservoir is more expensive to the west. And obviously south towards Ivanhoe and also Belfield, they are significantly more expensive. Now, they're close to both, obviously, Ivanhoe and Rosanna, which in Melbourne, and a lot of actual people from Melbourne will know this, are, I'd say, upper middle class suburbs, quite wealthy suburbs, particularly Ivanhoe East. You have a lot of suburbs on very large period blocks, and original blocks, should I say, period homes on original blocks. The other thing about them is they got great proximity to a lot of the schools in the area. So there's quite a few good schools in Kew, Ivanhoe and Hawthorn that are very close by. So because of that, a lot of people are happy to move there because they like to send their kids to school, particularly wealthier families. So that plays a large part in it too. Both of those suburbs also have really good accessibility to the city and town centres nearby. So Heidelberg itself and also Heidelberg West are actually really close to Coburg. They're really close to Heidelberg. They're really close to Watsonia. And they're only about 13 k's away from the city or so. So if you compare that to other suburbs that are a similar distance, they're actually probably about $200,000 to $300,000 cheaper, depending on which direction of the city you go to. But both of these suburbs have perfectly good demographics surrounding them, and also perfectly good schools surrounding them too, which are major reasons why both of these suburbs are set to gentrify in the future. So keep an eye out for both of them in the future. Where are we thinking about in New South Wales is due to gentrify next? Now, a lot of people have all different opinions, but I've probably got one that I think probably most strongly about, and the suburb's actually Waterloo. Now, it's a very interesting suburb because Waterloo, for people that have grown up in Sydney, you'll know this, has been full of public housing. Is quite a derelict and also dangerous suburb if you read about it in the media, particularly from articles in prior probably to even 2010. Though similar to probably Redfern, Waterloo's going through a thing called urban renewal at the moment, but it's not only urban renewal, it's actually going through gentrification as well. So why is Waterloo set to gentrify? Now, Waterloo is incredibly close to the Sydney CBD, like very, very close. It is about 4 k's from the Sydney CBD, and you still pick up houses, and also like whether that's detached, attached or terrace houses for literally under $2 million, which you literally cannot find anywhere in the Sydney CBD for that. Like, it is impossible unless it's, falling over in Surrey Hills and you have to do $150,000 of work to it. So that's one of the reasons. It's obviously being close to the city. It's so close to all the jobs. To give her an idea, CommBank has their actual headquarters at South Everleigh, which is very close to Waterloo. It's pretty much a walkable distance from Waterloo. It's also with the metro line coming in, going to get a station. So that's going to only improve the accessibility to the city. So it's going to be, I think, 2 stops from the CBD, which is insane. So that's only going to improve it. I think it's actually going on the Barangaroo line from memory too, which is really interesting because that's actually getting a train station. Furthermore to that, Redfern in the 2000s was a good example of what gentrified. Now, what happened in Redfern there was, alike to Waterloo now, it was actually considered very dodgy. Though you have, a cafe on nearly every corner in Redfern now. You have people earning $3,000 a week and above, that being very common in Redfern. You've got a really good town centre and lifestyle precinct in Redfern. You've got, the university close. You've got really high paying jobs very close by too, which is starting to come into Waterloo too. So that's basically what's going on there, and a reason why it's going to gentrify. Now, be a little bit careful where you buy, of course, but that's another reason as to why it's going to gentrify. Prices is probably another large thing. So Waterloo itself is actually about 30% cheaper than a lot of its surrounding suburbs. So especially Surrey Hills, it is incredibly cheap compared to Surrey Hills. You can pick up a place just as good in terms of the land size and also the interior of it as well in Waterloo for as much as you would in Surrey Hills, but should I say 30% cheaper? So not as much, but 30% cheaper. So the spillover effect will occur here, where people still want to have the same accessibility and lifestyle, but they'll live in the neighbouring suburb because they can afford there. So that's going to happen. I finally discussed as well, demographics are improving out of sight. So Waterloo in the last 15 years has had almost doubling of median income there. And it's only going to continue because continual high income earners are going to start moving in there, and that's going to continue to gentrify the suburb. So look out for Waterloo. A lot of Sydney-siders probably will have their own opinions of that. But in terms of making money and where's going to gentrify, it's a very good suburb in the future that will gentrify without a doubt. Let's get into another suburb. So a lot of people have reached out to me and also commented that I have a massive East Coast bias. Now, it's not entirely true, but the thing I generally want to do is let everyone know where the best suburbs are. And I'll tell you the vast majority are on the East Coast. Now, no doubt there are a couple in Perth, but definitely not as many, and definitely not the proportion of as many that you should buy in. But anyway, a suburb that's going to gentrify in the future in WA is a suburb called Rivervale. So for those who don't know where the suburb is, it's roughly 6 to 8 k's southeast of the CBD. It's close to Victoria Park and not overly far from the airport either. Now, if you look at this graph here, you'll see this is from Census, that Rivervale has had an increase in personal median weekly income of nearly 150% over the past 15 years, which is incredible, and it's up there with the highest in Australia. So you can see in 2006, it was close to the Australian average at $476 a week, and now in 2021, it was actually $1,015 a week, well above both the state and national average, which is just incredible, and you're not going to find that in many suburbs of WA, but that's what Rivervale has done. Now, furthermore to this, let's discuss why it is going to gentrify in the future. So, look, as I've discussed, first things first, you've got a major demographic shift in Rivervale. So, Rivervale itself has quite good access to a lot of the jobs in Perth. So, to give everyone an idea, the CBD does have a lot of jobs. The other two main job hubs in Perth are generally Joondalup in the north and also Canning Vale in the south. So it's not overly far from Canning Vale, which is more so your kind of blue collar and trade kind of centre of Perth. And it's not overly far either from the expressway north towards Joondalup, which would probably be from the suburbs somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes on a general day. So it's actually it's kind of central to all of the jobs in Perth too, which obviously adds to the demand for the suburb because people can kind of live there and work in any of those three main hubs of Perth quite comfortably. Now, it's close to also the Victoria Park lifestyle precinct. So Victoria Park is very close to Rivervale. Lath Lane also is. And they're very expensive compared to Rivervale. So Victoria Park's about $1.1 to $1.2 million. Rivervale is about in the 700s, closing on the 800s now. So it's quite significantly cheaper than that. It's also close to the Swan River and also Optus Stadium. It's actually close to the casino too. So for those that like playing roulette, that's a good suburb for you too. Not only that, the suburb's actually quite low in density. So most of the suburb there is actually houses, and most are actually detached. You still get houses there also on big blocks of I mean 800 meters squared to literally 6K from the CBD, which is just awesome. But that's something you've got there too. There's not many large-scale developments either, so you're going to notice that in the future, you'll see a lot of the surrounding suburbs, particularly towards that casino and towards probably Victoria Park, get a lot more high-rises. Rivervale won't get as many, so your stock levels are probably going to be a lot lower there, and that'll increase the, obviously, demand to supply ratio, which is good. Just a note of this suburb as well. So you do have a little bit of public housing in the suburb still, and especially towards Cloverdale, you have quite a lot and quite a bit of a crime issue there too. So be really careful when purchasing in this suburb, just simply because the suburb does have some quite dodgy pockets that you probably should avoid, but there also are some parts of the suburb that are exceptional and you should consider when buying. So for my WA friends, just consider this. It's a really good suburb to buy in. And yeah, I've actually covered it, so I hope you're thankful for that. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you're looking for a buyer's agent in Australia's best performing suburbs, be sure to reach out via www.compoundinvest.com.au. Thanks again, and welcome to the channel. I'll see you on the next one.